What makes the combat good? We can talk about a lot of stuff that can make the gameplay good. I just want to focus on 3 things that are very key in most of games. They are called the 3, and I'll put it in red just so it's very clear. The 3 C's. And these are more like guidelines or things to keep in mind whenever you are working on a game. These are not rules. Not all the games will have the 3 C's, so to speak. But what are they? And let's begin with that. One is the character. And please don't bully me for my handwriting, but it is what it is. The second one is the camera. And the third one is the controls. Those are the 3 C's that you can find in game development, especially when you are trying to get the feeling of a game right. And if your game is based around the combat, like for example Elden Ring and for example our game that we're working on, then you really need to have these 3 elements very, very tight, very, very good. You need to make them feel good. The character is more about what the character can do. What I will put it like can do. This groups the movement, the abilities, the attacks. How is the character designed? Or yeah, what it looks like. You can have a pixel type of character. You could have a robotic type of character that moves very choppy, very without interpolation, because I cannot find a word to describe it. Very robotic-like. Or maybe a young character with very fluid motion, or an assassin type of character, very sneaky, right? What it looks like, what it feels like, and what it can do. I'm just giving it like a super overview, quick overview of what you will find, right? This is really not a game design class, but we need to talk about it a little bit. The camera is the perspective that the actual player will be seeing through. So yeah, the point of view, the POV. You will need to determine what advantages or disadvantages this POV will have. If it's a top-down, you will have most of the view of the map, of the level. So your understanding of your environment will be greater than if I just put you in a first-person type of view. Disadvantage of a top-down type of camera is that you will not make the player feel that connected with the character, because it's super removed from the perspective of the actual character, right? If you are playing a first-person shooter, then you're actually very invested or involved in whatever the character is doing, because it's like you're seeing it through the eyes of the character. That's pretty much it. Like the things that you need to nail with your camera. See what advantages it can bring, see what disadvantages you may be losing. And the controls is just a matter of choosing something that will be responsive, whatever responsive means in your type of game. Sometimes you want to add some lag to your input, depending if your game, like, oh, you're drunk now, then you might want to mess around with the inputs, right, and make it a little bit more laggy. Could be you're reflecting it, the state of the game, through the controls. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. And well, if you can follow any type of what is it called? Do you have it? I'll just put it like scheme. And even better, common schemes. It helps, even though it like takes away a little bit of uniqueness of your game, because, well, if you are developing for maybe the Nintendo Switch and every game you accept stuff with your button A, and you're the only game that with B is the one that you accept, and you reject stuff with A, then you have a big problem. And probably you will not pass the test of the actual Nintendo team reviewing your game in order to be accepted, because one of the guidelines is that you need to follow, specifically that one, you need to follow. But if you're developing for PC, it's a little bit more open, right? You really can put your controls to whatever key you want. So give you that edge. But if you're not following certain conventions, like maybe you don't want to point or move the camera around with your mouse, you want to move it with the keys, and well, like old games, maybe like Doom, then you're going against the trend or most of the current games that we have right now. But again, it helps using the common schemes that already exist, but you can make your game more unique if you don't, or at least if you evolve from it a little better. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, what lessons can we get from Elden Ring? Because, well, right now, maybe the popular opinion is not that good, but the game is very solid, believe it or not. I only have the base game. Hopefully, am I able to see it? Yeah, so here I am. And it's using a controller, so let me grab my controller very quick. Connect it. Right, so here we have, here we can analyze the first thing. And let me just venture a little bit to the side. I'll just copy this and put it here. So we have our character, right? What can he do? What does it look? What does it look like? Well, in Elden Ring, you really can customize your character. Usually, you will want to make it look a little bit, I mean, good, or whatever you think it looks good for this type of game. Some people create a lot of interesting characters, and some people really create a lot of cursed characters. Whatever you like. I mean, that's a positive, because you're letting the player express itself, well, express themselves through a character. So that's good. What can it do? Well, depending on the type of weapon, you can move around, you can run, you can attack, and you have more mechanics, right? Because you have this attack, quick attack, you have this heavy attack, and if I had a shield, which I don't have, I could block, and then, well, I can use that. If I remember correctly, it was Ash something. It's just an attack that consumes your mind power, or your MP for, I think it's mind power, but magical power, who knows. So we have those bars, the stamina bar that will affect your attacks, and from here stuff gets a little bit more crazy. Why? Because the camera, as you can see, is a third-person camera. I might as well take a screenshot of that. Right, so we have a third-person camera. What advantages does it give me? Well, I have a little bit of more vision, right, of my surroundings, which, if you're playing Elden Ring or this type of games or this type of combat, you really want. You really want to have that type of vision because a lot of enemies are very sneaky. And you also want to know and start, I don't know, analyzing your environment to see where am I able to go, what paths can I take. And in this case, something that I skipped in the part where I was seeing or talking about the character is that in this game the character can jump, which allows for even more complex mechanics like, well, jumping and attacking, or jumping and doing a heavy attack, right? So we can run, jump, heavy attack, and it's very different if I would just run and attack, right? You can see that those are different attacks. Yeah, so this camera allows for that. Now, what's the problem of this camera? In spaces, not exactly like this, there are more claustrophobic spaces, but in reduced spaces where the enemy is very big, you will get this. And yeah, that character is... Oof. I just put random and went with it. It gets very rough because the camera is colliding with the walls. And here you have the first enemy you can find. Oh, you can also lock in and the camera will help you, or you can just fight without locking in. Look here. So, in cases where I'm surrounded by enemies, okay, I can see that guy. Oh, I can see that guy, but if I was against two, here I really cannot see what's coming behind me, right? If this was a third person, or excuse me, a top-down type of game, then I will be able to see, oh, they're coming for me from the front and from the back. Oh, and I also had the roll around, but we will talk about it in a little bit. And the issue with that is that it's really not an issue. I mean, it is an issue if your gameplay, you wanted your character or your player to always be mindful of its surroundings by just giving it like, oh, let me just have a top-down camera and I will make the camera a lot higher so you can see a lot about the game or the enemies. This will mean that the game is a more strategic one. This is more an action one where you are encouraged to, okay, I'm battling with you, but I also need to be mindful of if there's someone or something behind me. Then you can see that the camera, if you hold the stick, then the camera goes a little bit faster than if you're just doing this, right? So it allows you for that type of play where oh, I'm facing this because I ran from that enemy. Okay, I will attack you, but then I'll see. And even easier if you just looking in and then you are just flicking the stick just to see. I'm gonna die here if I just play. Right, so and that's why I'm not really a gaming stream, because if I'm playing I really cannot talk. Right, so here, something that you can't really perceive just by seeing someone play is the feel of the controls, which actually they feel pretty good. How can you determine this? Well, whenever you want to do something, oh, what did I do? Whenever you want to do something and it doesn't happen, then you have an issue of responsiveness. If I want to see behind me and my camera is taking this long, then you really don't have a responsive control scheme. If I attack, you can see that, okay, there is definitely a wind-up animation, right? It's not immediate. There are games, Dynasty Warrior comes to mind, where as soon as you trigger the attack, immediately does it. It skips a few frames just to make you know that the attack will go right this instant. In this type of game, because, okay, you do the attack, is a little bit slower, and if you do the heavy attack, is even more slower, it still gives you a little bit of control. Because if I'm attacking this way and I'm pushing my character, or well, my movement to the backside, the character do rotate. And I can tweak the direction that I want to attack. So even though the attacks are slow, compared to any hack and slash type of game, it does leave you a degree of control of it. And if you really want to deal more damage or have even more like a powerful attack, if you want to do that, you have the ability. You just need to know that the trade-off is an even slower attack, and you even can charge this, I believe. Yes, you can charge this. So it's constantly constantly presenting to you different alternatives of gameplay. You can either go for fast type of gameplay, which will actually make you think less but deal less damage, or better positioning will mean that you can stay in place and charge an attack, right? Or use a special attack. So the gameplay in this case is very balanced. It gives you a lot of alternative. It even has more weapons that give you even more alternatives. And you really don't want to box your player into one type of gameplay. I mean, you know what game you are trying to create, right? And what type of player you are, you should actually focus on that. But whenever that's feeling good, then you need to start thinking, okay, how can I make my game a little bit more accessible? What other options that are interesting for me can I add? Like, for example, I mean, if you're making a hack and slash, you can also implement like a type of attack where you need to charge, which makes it a little bit slower, but is the trade-off, right? You can get a little more strategy in it. Other mechanics that the player can do, well, you can go to the backside. You can sneak. I forgot about this. You can go to the backside and actually backstab, making even another layer of combat where when you are just trying to be sneaky. And this guy, did it see me? I don't think it did. Or you can be fast, and I missed completely. But yeah, in this case, the lessons that we are learning here is, even though the pace of the game is not that fast, it's very strategic in the timing that you need to do the attacks. And there will be bosses that you need to have a little bit more of reflexes in order to react to those type of attacks, and then you will need to learn attack patterns in order to be somewhat successful in this game. But yeah, I mean, they are from the makers from these type of games, right? From Software really like this type of punishing games where you have a clear strategy. You need to learn the mechanics, and there are more advanced mechanics that I cannot pull off in this stream. And yeah, makes it so the combat that already exists can build on top of each other. You can start spamming this attack, make your opponent stagger, then hit a charge attack, right? And with the parries that this doesn't have, with the parries and dodges and rolls, like, you can actually make a very interesting type of gameplay. Okay, so here we have this parries, dodges. It even increases the skill cap of the game. So yeah, those are the main things that are making the game, well, look good, feel good with the controls, look good with the character, and also feel good with the camera. You will see that the camera, and if I I'll just take a screenshot so you can see. The camera is not actually very fast either. There is a lot of camera lag, and that's not the key that I wanted to press. Right, so we can compare these images. You see that the center, let me use the yellow. You see that the center is here, but the same center, whenever you're moving, your character is actually to the side. And these are little tweaks that really makes it feel good, really sells the idea of the combat, or the combat pace, because even the camera is not super responsive. It's not following your every move exactly. Like, there is the camera lag. You can see that here is the center. The player, when it's moving, is not on the center. Even when it's moving forward, you can see that the camera tries to catch up to the player. And this is more noticeable if we are running. The player goes even forward, making it so the action of running feels like, oh, you're really going faster. It sells the idea very well. Yeah, when I stop, then the camera catches up. Yeah, and the animation of stopping there also helps, right? Because it like stops on its tracks, and then the camera comes in with a smooth zoom. Yeah, so that's actually what really sells this. Solid controls, the camera very smooth when it needs to be. Whenever you're locking in, I believe that it becomes a lot more responsive. Yeah, so as soon as I lock on, it's immediate. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to show for this part, and then we will see how can we implement this stuff on our game.